Alright, I have my gear shirt on, and today we're talking about some gear. More specifically, we're talking about the Frogg Toggs rain jacket. This is a rain jacket that I've personally used for probably 5,000 miles, if not significantly more than that. You know, so I certainly have quite a bit of experience with it, and you know, have gone through quite a few pairs just as well. In some ways, I love this jacket, and in many other ways, I think it is a very dangerous jacket, and a jacket that maybe should not be worn and maybe should not be used. But as something we'll get into, everything in backpacking is a risk, and it just comes down to how much risk you're willing to take on. And I think this jacket is a risk if you're taking it on a backpacking trip. But let's first start out with some things I like about it. It is extremely lightweight. I don't know off the top of my head how light it is, but I'll put the weight right down here on the screen. So it is very lightweight. It meets up and beats many of the top rain jackets out there. You know, in the past I've used OR Helium 2, I've used this, I've used a Cuban poncho tarp, I've used, you know, more expensive and much thicker jackets, and, you know, I always went with this. You know, I used the Cuban poncho tarp for about 5,000 miles as well, which is another extremely risky piece of gear that I wouldn't necessarily recommend to 99% of people. But anyway, so it is very, very lightweight. And I think that is one of the biggest appeals to many people who are trying to shed some pounds. You know, that you can buy one of these for very cheap, and you can instantly shave, you know, possibly a pound or 2 pounds out of your backpack. Just like that. Which brings up another great point about this. It is very, very cheap. I think you can buy them for like $20 at Walmart or at Amazon, or just a plethora of online stores. So you can really get them anywhere, and you can get them for very little money. So them being extremely lightweight coupled with extremely cheap is a pretty cool thing. But like with everything, you can't have it all. And this rain jacket is certainly not perfect, and I've actually most of this year strayed away from it, and will probably not be using it in the future at all anymore. Even though in the past I'd used it on the Pacific Crest Trail, the Florida Trail, the Sheltowee Trace Trail, the Uinta Highline Trail, the Pacific Northwest Trail, and just all sorts of other things in between. You know, just in daily life. It's certainly not the most like fashionable thing to be wearing, but you know, it keeps me dry and warm. And that's more than I can say about a lot of rain jackets that I had tried in the past. The OR Helium 2 did not keep me dry. I found that rain jacket it would wet out constantly. You know, that if I was going to be in rain for any period of prolonged time, that I was going to get wet. You know, and I just had to accept that. It was going to keep me warm. You know, it was a pretty good wind block, and it would certainly keep my heat in, but it was not keeping the water out. Whereas the Frogg Toggs, it would actually keep the water out. So amazingly, this rain jacket at like $20 and, I don't know, 5 ounces or whatever it is, it actually keeps you dry. It really, really does. This thing doesn't like breathe at all. I'm sure it does a little bit, but not as much as many like fancier rain jackets out there. Besides the price tag, besides the weight, what I really liked about this jacket was that I knew I was going to be dry. And that kind of comes with a bit of an asterisk that we'll get into. So it's very lightweight, it's very cheap, it actually keeps you warm, and it actually keeps you dry. So let's look at some of the cons of this thing. The Frogg Toggs rain jacket. Since it is so light and so cheap, what you can probably immediately imagine is that they will rip if a strong breeze blows on it. You know, just about anything will rip this jacket And after about 2,000 miles, that's about how long I would have them for before, you know, they were just 100% unsafe to be using, whether it was just covered in holes and rips and stuff or duct tape. But I'd get about 2,000 miles out of them, you know, and that was hiking on well-groomed trails like the Pacific Crest Trail, like the Appalachian Trail. But if you even slightly brush up against like an even moderately sharp twig or stick, or if you were to fall on the ground while wearing this, you're certainly going to get some holes in it. And the durability is it is the worst thing about this. That I may have gotten 2,000 miles out of these, if not, you know, sometimes maybe less than that, 1,000 miles or something. They're easy to replace, but the big problem here is that you could find yourself in a really dangerous situation, as I kind of did on the Uinta Highline Trail in Utah. Let's say you're 30 miles from town, 40, 50, 70 or more. You know, you're not close, but most towns aren't that far. You know, you could be 100 miles away from town. Let's say you get a rip in this, whether that rip is on your sleeve, which is most commonly where I would get them, somewhere on my sleeve, or, God forbid, somehow you get a rip on your chest, or just from the abrasion of your backpack on your back. I've had them rip just straight up the back before. So you're 50 to 70 miles outside of town, and there's a storm coming in. It's going to take you 2 days or something to get to town. You rip your rain jacket, and now you're going to get wet. You're going to get wet. Your clothes are going to get wet. You're going to get wet. You're going to be cold, most likely. On the Uinta Highline Trail, I got soaked. My rain jacket just ripped straight up the back. It had a couple holes on either sleeves. I got soaked.
Okay, doesn't look so bad that way, baby. But this way it sure does. It is raining and hailing, and I'm gonna put the camera down.
And then hail started coming. Snow started coming. And I was freaking cold. I was cold, and I was in a very dangerous position. And that is the problem with this rain jacket.
It is snowing. From 100 degrees, a record heat wave in Salt Lake City, to this.
You can very easily get a hole in it. That could, you know, compromise the entire point of wearing a rain jacket, to keep you mostly dry. So, you know, here, even just looking at this one, where is that? That's the hood. There's like little holes forming right around the hood, you know, which I'm sure maybe another 100, 200 miles or something, these holes are going to get bigger, and then water is just going to start seeping in through my neck and down my back, you know. So I think this jacket poses a very large risk, and that is one reason why I'm not really going to be using them anymore, other than newer jackets have nicer features and are more durable and all that. Everything in backpacking comes with risk, and it just comes down to how much risk are you willing to take on. You know, I'm not trying to promote bad habits. I'm not trying to promote really risky activities most of the time. And that's what I think this jacket is. It is wonderful in some ways. You know, it's cheap, it's light, it's going to keep you dry, it's going to keep you warm. But I just don't think you can trust it, especially on a long distance hike. Whether you're out for a week, a month, multiple months at a time, like you are on many, many thru hikes out there, you know, if you're just going on an overnight trip, sure, give it a shot. You know, what do you have to lose? You know, you can always go home. On an overnight trip, you're probably not very far from home or far from people that can help you. But when it comes to being stranded out in the woods, essentially, you know, carrying only a backpack of all of your things between towns for, you know, 100 to 200 miles, I don't think the Frogg Toggs rain jacket is it. Replacing them was never a problem for me. I could always just order one on Amazon, or oftentimes, you know, if I was hiking long enough and I knew that my jacket didn't have that much life on it, I would just prematurely add one of these into my resupply boxes before I left, and then just essentially ship it to myself at some random point in the trail. It is a cool jacket, but, you know, it's certainly got a lot of problems. Most of the time, I don't really want to be repairing my gear out in the field. I want to have gear that I can trust to, you know, at least make it from town to town without like totally shredding. So like once you get that little hole in your rain jacket, your Frogg Toggs, it's not that much of a stretch for that hole to then grow into something massive on one of these things. So it's not very durable, and also it is just so extremely baggy that it just wants to catch on anything. So do I like these rain jackets? I do like these rain jackets. Would I recommend them to others? I would recommend them to others. But I would really weigh the pros and cons of it, you know, and the type of trail that you're possibly going to be hiking and how often you're going to need to be relying on a rain jacket. You know, and then obviously this is just a $20 like Walmart jacket. It doesn't have pit zips, it doesn't have pockets for things, you know, it doesn't have any really fancy features to it. So, you know, you can certainly get a lot better things, as I have done for the future. Anyway, that's my kind of thoughts on the Frogg Toggs rain jacket. I've used it a lot over the past like 5 or 6 years, and I think my time has kind of come to an end. So anyway, I'm done with the Frogg Toggs for now, and something else I've been using this year and into the future, what I got and what I wanted, is the Enlightened Equipment Visp. This review of this, or at least a more so like first impressions type of review, will be coming up soon. Obviously 2020 has been a crazy wash of a year, so I haven't been able to do, you know, nearly as much through hiking as I had previously planned out for this year. So anyway, I have been using this all the time just in my day-to-day life, and you know, when out hiking and stuff where I live here in Flagstaff, Arizona. So definitely have some opinions about this, and again, why I'm switching from the Frogg Toggs to this. So be on the lookout for that and other gear reviews coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching.